Friends, today I have a truly frightening story to share with you. This tale revolves around Satish, who was driving a truck from Bangalore to Hubli on a chilly day. On a December night shrouded in thick fog and darkness, he stumbled upon a woman in a white sari by the roadside, who vanished without a trace. Following this eerie encounter, he experienced a series of strange incidents, such as seeing shadows inside the truck and encountering a mysterious man. Despite facing these ghostly happenings with bravery, Satish was left questioning whether it was all real or merely a figment of his imagination. Before diving into the story, I kindly request that if you are new to my channel, please subscribe and like my video. Now, let's get started with the story. My name is Satish, and I've been driving trucks for the last decade. This story takes us back to a cold December night in 2018 when I was in Bangalore. I was tasked with transporting heavy cement bags from Bangalore to Hubli, and my departure was planned for 11 p.m., as late-night travel typically meant less traffic. As I drove down the highway, dense fog enveloped the surroundings, and the road was nearly empty. I found myself slowly becoming drowsy, so I turned on the radio. Unfortunately, due to a poor signal, it only emitted static. The darkness was deep, and the streetlights along the road were turned off. Around 1 a.m., I caught sight of a woman wearing a white sari, holding something in her hand by the roadside. I initially thought she might have been injured in an accident, so I slowed down to take a closer look. To my shock, as I approached, she vanished into thin air, sending chills up my spine. I quickly applied the brakes and pulled the truck over, only to find no one there. Convincing myself it was fatigue-induced hallucinations, I resumed driving. But strange occurrences continued to plague me. A few kilometers later, I glanced in the rearview mirror and felt someone sitting in the backseat. A sudden chill washed over me as I gathered my courage to check again, but there was nothing there. Was I truly seeing things, or was something more sinister at work? At around 1:30 a.m., I was navigating a narrow road near Channarayapatna, an area known for its hauntings. The silence in the truck was unsettling. I owned an old phone, but there was no network coverage here. I attempted to turn the radio on once more, but it only produced strange noises that sounded like whispers. Around 2 a.m., I felt the truck begin to slow inexplicably. I checked the gear, everything appeared in order, but the engine started emitting strange noises. I was left with no choice but to stop the truck on the roadside. Getting out, I began inspecting the engine, supported only by the light from my phone. As I was contemplating my next move, I suddenly heard someone call my name from behind. Satish. The voice was so clear that I believed someone was right there with me. But when I turned, there was no one in sight, and my heart raced in panic. Trying to calm myself, I returned to the truck only to feel a shadow moving inside. With my resolve tested, I opened the truck door, but it was empty. Fear gripped me as I quickly tried to start the vehicle, but it refused to budge. Despite repeated attempts, it remained unresponsive. Then, I heard footsteps approaching from behind the trees, a soft sound that sent me into a frenzy. In desperation, I honked the horn to attract attention, yelling for help. Just then, I glanced at the side mirror and saw the same woman I had seen earlier, but this time her face was fully visible. Her eyes were dark and vacant, devoid of any life. Terror consumed me, and I pulled out a sheet of the Hanuman Chalisa from my pocket, reciting it loudly despite my trembling voice. Suddenly, the truck spun on its own, and I heard a noise behind me as if something heavy had fallen onto the road. Terrified, I didn't dare to look back. By 3:15 a.m., I had finally reached Tumkur, feeling relief wash over me as I entered a well-lit area bustling with activity, although fear still lingered in my heart. I jumped into a nearby dhaba, roadside eatery, at around 3:30 a.m., where other truck drivers were drinking tea. I ordered my own and sunk into my seat, covered in sweat, my heart racing. Ramananu, the dhaba owner who knew me, approached with concern, asking if I was alright. I recounted the strange events of the night, which darkened his expression. He told me that many people had seen the woman in white, adding that she had been killed by a truck on that road years ago. Goosebumps cascaded down my arms. Ramananu warned me that drivers who encountered her often faced fatal accidents. Just as I finished my tea, another truck driver named Shiva approached. He revealed that he had experienced similar occurrences on that road but had kept silent. His chilling words darkened the atmosphere further as he described seeing the woman's shadow in his mirror and hearing tales of her vengeance against drivers. Uneasy, I decided I needed to get out of there quickly. After thanking Ramananu and Shiva, I started my truck and exited, but only a short distance ahead, I noticed a group of people in white clothes by the roadside, staring at me. My heart raced again. I attempted to accelerate, but the truck wouldn't go above 40 kilometers per hour. Suddenly, a man with a red lantern appeared in the road, oblivious to my approach. I honked, but he stood still, and as I studied him, his eyes reflected an unnatural light, making me question whether he was real or not. The clock read 4:30 a.m., and my nerves were fraying. The man began to wander slowly toward me, his movements unnatural as if he lacked the strength to walk properly. I locked the truck doors in sheer panic as he held the lantern towards me. The light bore down, but despite my attempts to start the engine, it produced only a groan. Suddenly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I picked up the call in fear. An airy voice whispered, "Why did you stop? Keep moving." My heart dropped, and in a panic, I threw the phone, shattering the screen. The figure in front of me now tried to climb onto the truck. In desperation, I blared the horn, and to my relief, the engine roared to life. Without wasting a moment, I shifted into gear and pressed on the accelerator, causing the man to vanish in an instant. Relieved, I thought I was free from the terrifying ordeal. The sky brightened, but the fear lingered. A roadside eatery appeared, and I decided to pause for tea, hoping to calm my racing heart. I parked and stepped out around 5:15 a.m., greeted by an elderly man making tea. He, too, noticed my distress and inquired about my night. I shared my tale, but when I mentioned the woman and the man with the lantern, the old man grew serious. He explained that many strange happenings occur along that particular route. The spirits of those who suffered roam the roads, searching for something they lost. Feeling more anxious, I soaked in his words as he warned me not to stop on the road ahead, whatever happened. Taking his advice to heart, I resumed my journey. The clock was now 5:45 a.m., and rays of light began to penetrate the sky. I hoped daylight would bring safety, but then I spotted the flickering light of the lantern again. Incredibly, the light uncomfortably close to the road, and my fear returned. I slowed the truck, attempting to calm myself, but the engine began to sputter again. My heart raced, and as I approached the source of the light, the rear of my truck suddenly jolted as if something heavy landed on it. Suddenly, I was confronted by a blurry figure again, the man in white. He was closer now, eyeing me with a twisted smile. I pressed on the accelerator to escape, and just then a cold touch brushed my shoulder. My heart pounded in my chest, and I dared to glance back, only to find nothing there. As the sun began to rise further, the road opened up and I thought I had reached safety. But every glance around revealed new signs of dread. Suddenly, the brakes locked on their own, and the truck screeched to a halt. The same child, around 8 years old this time, stood frozen in the road. I honked, but to no avail. The child merely stared, and his kite began to fly unbidden despite a lack of wind. With a trembling breath, I pressed the truck forward. As I approached, the child melted away, but the kite remained floating in the air. This bizarre harvest of the night haunted my mind as I pressed on. My nerves frayed as I drew closer to the city limits of Hubli, finally coming upon a bustling dhaba. I parked my truck and, feeling relieved, shared my experience with Raghu, the owner, who smiled, trying to allay my fears. He reassured me that the area was safe, handing me a cup of tea. I took a moment, finding solace in the light of the sun as it warmed my skin. As I continued on, despite my heart settling, those chilling experiences would forever echo within me. I had arrived safely at last, yet I promised myself I'd never embark on such a lonely journey again. But the memories of that night, and the unimaginable encounters, shall never fade from my mind. It was indeed a happy ending. Yet, it remains a haunting memory that will linger in my life forever.